I have never cried so hard in a book because its subject matter can be heavy. At times, the subject matter can be extremely enjoyable, getting into the perspective of a child, and sometimes you just have some tears because the book is really that good. I will say straight off, this is the best book I have ever read in my life. And considered its target audience, it is really, really just a beautiful work of art that needs to be shared. Otherwise, let's get into it before I start crying. Hello, my name is Andrew Casey at Hypersanitybooks, and today I'll be reviewing She Called Me Wolf, written by, I'm going to try to say this right, Tenkara Smart, a brilliant, brilliant author. She's won awards for this book. It is really a work of art that needs to be shared. When you compare certain books within different genres, there's a particular, you might say, Oscar-winning drama within a book. This book hits that point where it's already saying it's one of the best books you could read in your lifetime. So why not give this one a go? The setting is extremely beautiful, set in Australia, where I live. Yay! And her husband's Australian. She is American. Worked really well. The research within this book is good. The characterization is good. The main character is named Wolf. The deuteragonist to the story is Polly, a ghost. This really worked through the story where you raise a lot of questions about an empathetic main character in his journey, and you get satisfying answers through the book and within the end. It is beautiful all the way. It is laid out with 40 chapters. Now, the first several chapters go through really fast, so it feels like there's going to be more chapters. It's a real quick page turner, and one of the reasons is each chapter is showing different phases of the protagonist's life growing up, from a newborn baby and through certain phases, which is relevant to the main plot, I will say. Now, he has an older brother, doesn't get along with him. He is 7 years older than him through the story. Now, one part that begs the differ, why is his older brother that way? There are a lot of questions that you raise while reading this book, and that's one part that keeps the mystery and the conflict engaging. It is satisfying how the story does unfold, so you're not left with one of those sorts of endings to a book where everything is a mess. This is a well-structured book. Now, it starts off with him being newborn, goes through ages 3 and so forth. It focuses more on his age group between 6, 8, 10 and 12. Mostly at the age of 12 is where the main plot will take over. There is a lot of characterization in the earlier parts, and what made this book really good, he has that empathetic connection with nature, so the fauna empath, you might say. There is certain animals that he talks to that they reference, and there is something about a koala saying words like tosser and drongo. It's Australian slang, which he has also talked to me about. Yes, I love that. I really love that in fiction. Now, this also shows tragedy within that. So you're always guessing, is there something mentally wrong with this kid where he's making friends with different animals? Is he really all there? And when you ask these questions, it's because he's got an alcoholic father, and that becomes really strong in the book at chapter 13. And he's at a young age. There is an extreme issue of domestic violence and not being dealt with. So this particular part of the story has a certain part where the father locks him in a box, and the tragic moment with that is he finds sanctuary in that because he's safe from the physical abuse. Now, I'm not trying to say that it's a really dark book. I'm not trying to say that at all. It just has a lot of that sort of conflict that raises those questions. The other part is Polly being the supporting character. She is a ghost and interacting with him a lot through certain parts, especially through main key plot points of the book. With her character, you sort of wonder a little bit of something there. It touches on the subject of reincarnation, where it's a subject I don't know much about at all, and this book actually touches on it in a way that's quite easy for the reader to follow. And for myself, that was really well done. That's where this book had a really nice flow to it. There is a lot of subject matter in there. He talks to a particular person for martial arts, and if you like Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, but for a preteen kind of look or perspective, this book may be for you. With the martial arts, this is done well, where the instructor, Master Kelly, talks about, are you afraid of me or are you afraid of the stick? No, well, which one is it? And that was interesting. The reincarnation spirituality of the book talks about the possibility of having a past life or past experiences, because he's developing quickly with his martial arts. And through different age groups, this is extremely well done. When he's 12, it talks about his skin being like an iron shirt because he's toned, he's becoming muscular. Now, there is the conflict with the father. That's the central antagonist of the story. The mother tries to leave at a particular point to stay with someone else, and the same sort of repetition of bad toxic relationships come where he's in control for them to go back in the car, go back home. So the conflict with the older brother is earlier in the book, and you sort of wonder and ask yourself, what sort of relationship does he have with the father? And there is some pretty dark territory that it touches on the subject matter. When you're in the perspective of the child, though, in earlier points of his life, it is interesting how he's making the friends with the animals. It's how he has that spiritual connection with spirits, but has that connection with animals, that empathy. And I would say it's one of the strongest points of this particular characterization. It just had something else that other things that have tried this don't work. Dr. Dolittle doesn't work. Then you got the remake. Then there's also the Nickelodeon show Wild Thornberrys. It just doesn't quite hit the mark, even for the younger target audience. That's how I feel with it. With this, it's got that drama that drives the plot along to keep you invested in the book and asking questions all along the way, which helps with the particular Shakespeare quote, to be or not to be. That is the question. And these questions do get answered in the end. With a particular turning point in the story, the father gets challenged on gambling, has a win. So you can see the tension and the violence between him and the mother through the book. And the tragedy is she's not really protecting the child from the harm. And there is a lot of the extreme abuse. There are resolutions to leaving that toxic relationship and doesn't. But it is also extremely realistic, so you can't completely judge the situation. Now, even though the martial arts is part of the character development and it means something to the protagonist, which I think is wonderful, and I talk to my psychologist with a lot of these sorts of subjects, because in a lot of things today, you hear about we got to give more love and hugs than punches. And when you look at some situations, this is something that means something to the character. So a professional would try to understand why it means something to the character to help them persevere through. And when you're afraid all the time of being belted to crap, you want to find some sanctuary. And there's a particular point as it's getting towards the third act where it gets really dark, where he's going to commit suicide. And this particular chapter, and I just want to touch on this in an appropriate manner, the subject matter is so heavy where it is a lot to take in because of how well it is written. So Polly, the spirit, is trying to intervene to stop him from doing it and trying to talk him out of it, trying to stop, and he's trying to force to hang himself. And it's very, very deeply written. So it feels like the triggering point where, for a middle grade audience, it's a bit of a dark area. But when you get past this point, and yes, we say this within different types of psychological fields, you can have the darkest, absolute, rottenest day of your life, and with certain choices, choosing to do better to be from then on. And that's where the book became, it just kept getting better through the key plot points. So with this particular point, the next chapter, he's doing better with his life than he ever has at the age of 12. So taking control of his life, it gets to, there were certain points where his father's beating him up, he wants to fight back, and you can see similarities of him training and not quite being as afraid in the same position, being pushed down to the ground, to his father pushing him down to kicking him. Now, he does fight back after so many times it happens, which gave it a realism. The story, he's in control. The sad part running away from the family, contacting mum that he forgives her, it's not going to work out, and he's going to go live where Master Kelly has moved to so he can keep up with his training, have the independence. He's stood up to his antagonist, and at the age of 12 he's making some pretty big decisions. In Australia, there's also that sort of issue with family court and with certain places on where a child can choose to live. When they're at the age of 12, there's a lot more of a, I'm sick of this life, I need my own life. Now, I'm not saying all of this is right, it's wrong. In this particular circumstance, it's extremely bold. And moving forward from the suicide attempt to being the happiest this character can ever be in his life, it has a lot of tear-jerking moments. And saying within custody battles, children in some circumstances do find their way back home. And in some circumstances, some people play games to a point where there is just so much damage done, forgiveness is never going to happen. And I think that's a real shame. Now, in this circumstance, he forgives his mother, he talks to her, that she didn't protect him, accepts it, but he has that independence within his life, looking to get work, carry on with education and his martial arts training because it meant something to him, and he has a more enriched life. Now, I can't spoil the way, there's a lot of twists that come into it. However, within this particular story, if you're looking at for something on the Oscar-winning level to something unique, this is the book for you. If you like something similar to The Notebook, where it's a high-level drama, positive resolution, if you're looking for something like Forrest Gump, anything in the high levels, this is the perfect book for you. And I will definitely be reading this book again. I will enjoy it. I am going to be talking to the author again for the next book. Can't ruin how that's going to unfold without ruining the first book. Yes, I've already said a little bit too much in some aspects. Otherwise, that's it for today. If you're new to the channel, thanks for watching. Please hit like, subscribe, or comment. If you want me to review your book, contact me at Andrew Casey at hypersanitybooks.com. Send me an email, and maybe I'll be reviewing your book soon. Otherwise, look after yourself, take care, and all seriousness to other people out there, if you are in your dark moment in life, facing suicidal challenges, I believe this type of book is good for you, because that dark day in your life doesn't need to control you for the rest of your life moving forward, and you can do so much with your life when you cut out the bull.